To know more about self-sabotage, we're now connected with clinical psychologist Irene. Good morning, Jo.
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is such an interesting topic, and I'm sure you have answers to this. Before we delve into what sort of symptoms do people have when they self-sabotage, could you please explain what is self-sabotage?
Okay, from a psychological point of view, self-sabotage is actually a pattern of actions that prevents ourselves from feeling happy or reaching our goal. So it's actually a dangerous behavior, like what you just said. It might be a self-harming behavior.
Why do we self-sabotage?
Okay, so people self-sabotage themselves for a lot of reasons. One of them is feeling insecure, actually. They are not feeling safe with themselves. They think they don't deserve the best, so they just keep doing the negative self-talk or like predicting the worst outcomes. And usually we can find this a lot in a relationship. Like maybe we avoid commitment or safety, or we pick up fights very frequently.
Okay, so that's an example from the relationship sphere, but can you give us more concrete examples? For example, like at work, are there any telltales?
Okay, maybe for the example at work, we can see from one of them is negative self-talk. It's a very frequent self-sabotage form, like when we think that, oh, I will never be good enough in this field. I will never do good enough for my team. So we're doing poorly, and then the self-sabotage or the negative self-talk becomes real.
Yeah, I do that actually. I have a confession to make, Jo. I'm currently going through this screenwriting workshop with one of the best directors in Indonesia. And when I stumble upon a challenge, I begin to have that negative self-talk. Self-talk is like, you know, maybe I'm not cut out for this, you know, maybe I should just quit now. Thank you for making me realize that I am self-sabotaging myself at the moment and I should stop doing it. So how do I know that I'm sabotaging myself? I mean, it's like, what are the usual or the typical symptoms? I mean, that is one of the symptoms. I usually do the self-talk. What else, Jo?
Okay, so like when we want to know if we're self-sabotaging ourselves or not, we have to realize or be aware of the pattern of our actions. If our patterns of actions are preventing ourselves from reaching our goal or just making us constantly unhappy in reaching our goals, it might be another sign. So it's a feeling. It's not nice having self-sabotage because we just feel further from our goal. And then when we realize that most of our relationships or work or career are starting to fail. It's a pattern, actually.
It's a pattern.
It's a pattern.
It's a pattern.
I think it's pretty counterintuitive for some people who doesn't experience this behavior to not reach for your goal. So what causes this behavior? Is it past trauma or anything else?
Okay, when we're talking about the cause of self-sabotaging behavior, we have to take ourselves back to the past because like what I just said, it's a pattern. So like we have to know what happens in the past. Do we feel unsafe with our surroundings, our environment, or our family? If we were unsafe back then, we might not feel safe here right now. Because we're always predicting for the worst outcome and we're always reserving ourselves for the worst thing and worst situation. So when there's happiness or when there's a goal in front of us, we just ditch ourselves and make us farther from the goal.
What sort of...
Because we feel that we don't deserve.
Right. We feel that we don't deserve. This is interesting. I would like to... I want you to elaborate on that that we have to go to the past and usually what happened within a family. What sort of family dynamics pattern that usually creates generations or children who self-sabotage?
Okay, one of the most common thing that happens in a family that creates a self-sabotaging individual is when they criticize this person a lot. So when they achieve something, the parents maybe criticize or maybe just dismiss their achievements. So they never felt enough. They never felt they deserve a good, reward, or like just maybe a good words about their achievement. So there's a lot of critics, or like the family dynamics are chaotic. So like maybe the parents are always arguing all the time, or like the emotions there are very, very chaotic. So when they go outside to another relationship or maybe a job setting, they always find for that chaos. They are not used to the stability.
Very interesting, Joe. So you mentioned earlier there are at least two kinds of self-sabotaging behavior. It can happen in a relationship and it can happen at work. With work, usually, when probably you are about to get promoted and suddenly you sort of mess up at work so that you don't get promoted. But what about in relationship? What sort of self-sabotaging behavior that often happens when you're in a relationship?
Okay, when in a relationship, usually the pattern is still the same, like hindering or preventing ourselves reaching our goal or needs. So the examples of their behavior are avoiding commitment or stability. When we find a good partner or it's a healthy relationship, but we're feeling that why am I feeling this is going to not work out? Why am I feeling this is too good to be true?
Oh my God.
And then we follow that feeling, we act to that feeling. And then we just create some fights, frequent fights, by maybe criticizing our partner too much, or like focusing on the negative side of the relationship, or just any slight changes, we can like make it or blow it up into a big fight. Or we avoid. We just keep ourselves quiet when there's a problem, and then we just end the relationship. And that's the most common pattern of behaviors in a self-sabotaging relationship.
I feel so vulnerable right now because I see all that in me.
So you've experienced
oh my God,
that.
Joe.
It's okay.
No, but that was in the past. In the past, I'm trying to work on myself. Yes, Joe.
Well, okay, Irene, I would like to touch back on the point of toxic parenting or tiger moms. We used to hear that phrase a couple years back.
Tiger dads too, though.
Tiger dads
Yeah.
too. So is it dangerous to put unrealistic expectations and demands towards your children?
Yes, of course, because like what you just mentioned earlier, tiger moms or tiger parenting culture creates a very high demand for the children. So they rarely felt enough, or they even never felt enough. They never feel appreciated. They just felt criticized.
Yes.
And that kind of demand or high standards, sometimes it's not rational, the standards are, and they put to themselves and they bring it out from the family. They put a higher standard even for their partner or their job environment. And then they never felt satisfied that way.
Right. So what are the different forms of self-sabotage? Because I've heard that procrastination is one of them. What else other than procrastination?
Yes. Okay, like when we procrastinate, actually it's aligned with the avoidance.
Yes.
When we always find ourselves, why are we avoiding something, avoiding conflict, avoiding a difficult task, and then we, other than procrastinate, critics. It's one of the most biggest form of self-sabotage. critics towards ourselves or towards others. And then the other thing is when we procrastinate, we critique a lot, and then when we just dismiss our own emotions. Also, that's also one of the behaviors of self-sabotaging. We always think that, okay, it's not okay for me to feel safe, it's not okay for me to feel angry, so I just like harm myself in the relationship emotionally.
Wow. Okay, so clearly, Joe, that self-sabotage is not good for any of us, right? We need to stop doing that. So in order to stop doing that, first, I assume, Joe, that we have to be able to identify first our triggers. Why do we self-sabotage? So how do we identify them? You know, when we start doing these destructive things to ourselves, how do we identify it? Make us feel more aware that, hang on a minute, this is not good. I'm self-sabotaging at the moment.
Okay, actually, that's the hardest part. The hardest first part in healing from our self-sabotaging behavior. Well, actually, it's not an official clinical diagnosis, but we gotta heal from it. So, like, the first part to identify is we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to evaluate our patterns of behavior. Well, actually, are my pattern of behaviors bringing me closer to my goals, or actually it's like preventing us from fulfilling our goals or needs?
Okay.
That's the first one. We have to be honest with ourselves, because it's hard to admit that we did wrong or we got a wrong pattern.
Okay.
Okay, Joe, such a fruitful talk. I mean, I learned a lot from you and from...
But you don't self-sabotage, right, Dirza?
Hopefully I don't, because I haven't had any traits like that. But yeah, thanks, Joe. Such an insightful discussion.
You're very welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Irene, for sharing with us. Irene is a clinical psychologist. We hope to talk to you again soon, because we always love talking about the psychological phenomenon, because more and more people are more aware about taking care of our mental health. So thank you so much, Irene, once more. Have a lovely day.
Stay safe.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Marisa and Mas Dirza.
Goodbye.
Bye.